I look so casual for a video, but I feel like I just have to say what I'm about to say, and I don't even know why. So, coming to discover lesbianism was kind of something that was pretty far removed from myself, because I knew that I liked women from about age 4, but I didn't know that it was like something that was normal. I never had a mom who would tell me that loving the same sex was bad, or that loving the opposite sex was the only way you could be a good person or whatever. So my experience in trying to unpack my internalized homophobia came from me seeing how outside influences reacted to queer people and queer identities, especially in the Black community, which, if you know anything about that, you know that is kind of not something that's really talked about or celebrated. Instead, it's more ridiculed and talked as something that's a hill that you need to climb over in order to become that amazing person, aka in order to become straight, because that's the only way you can be a good person, especially since with a lot of the community, a lot of people are very indoctrinated into religion. So being indoctrinated into religion as well, you start to see that, oh, I have to live my life this specific way, otherwise God won't love me, which not true. God's gonna love you regardless. God loves all the murderers. I mean, I don't know what you want me to say. Like, God loves everybody. And then it comes to a point where I had to go, wait, God loves everybody, but at the same time, people are still saying that being this way is wrong, and that you can only be accepted into heaven if you're this way, and you're going to get sent to hell for this, and this. So unpacking my queer identity came right alongside unpacking my religious identity and what religion meant to me. When I was about 9 years old, I used to go to church every Sunday, every other Sunday. I used to be in the church. I loved church. I loved to be there. I loved to read the Bible. I loved to talk to the adults about God. And then the more I asked questions, the less responses I got, or the more I felt curious, the less receptive people were to my presence. So around that time, I wanted to get baptized. So I went to a church with my mother, and we talked to the man. We said, hey, she wants to get baptized today. And he pulls me aside. He gets on my level. I'm 9 years old. He's a grown-ass man. So, of course, he stoops down and he talks to me, and he says, are you ready to do you want to get baptized today? And I said, yes. And he said, are you ready to get baptized? And I said, yes. And he said, okay. He goes and he sits back at his little desk across from the table, and then he says, I don't think you are ready. You need to come back on another day when you are. And I just look at him and I go, oh, okay. And then on the way to the car, I felt myself tearing up, because I was like, there's no way I'm going to be accepted into the kingdom of heaven now if even someone at church isn't willing to baptize me, because what if I'm never ready? And then it got to the point where I started to realize, some things aren't really making sense. But it didn't really add up to me that it was because that some religions are patriarchal, and those religions put an extra emphasis on the fact that if you are not this specific way, and typically this specific way is following a man, you're not one of the good ones. You're not someone who is going to be accepted into the kingdom of heaven. And that was what I wanted so desperately. Even as a child, I used to scream and cry about it. I used to be in my room praying that God would accept me and love me, even though I'm different. I used to pray to become better. I used to pray to be a better person. I was getting bullied pretty severely around 3rd grade, so about 8, 9 years old. I'm getting bullied pretty severely. So I start praying, maybe if I ask God to call me into heaven now, I will be able to escape the way I feel about myself and the way I feel about others, because in my head, I was like, it's not very righteous of me to think very bad thoughts about people, which I used to be like, I hate so-and-so, and I was always taught, like, you shouldn't hate people, hating people is wrong. So, how that ties into my queer identity now, after years of not not being in that space of having to put myself in the Christian lens, through the Christian lens, not looking at myself and interpreting myself through that lens, because that lens made me absolutely despise everything about me, especially the things that I couldn't change, no matter how hard I tried. So even up to last year, I had well, about 2 years ago, I was 18. I had a boyfriend, and I felt like this is my way to be able to become righteous again. I'm gonna get back into that sphere, that space. And then slowly I stopped thinking that way, and it's like I'm just gonna go back and be a spiritual person, because spirituality, you don't need to exactly follow the Christian Bible or the Christian God in order to be accepted in the kingdom of heaven. Now I'm just like, I don't really want to go there, because I've met the people that are saying that they're going to be in heaven, and that God's going to judge right, and they're going to judge correctly for them, and he's going to not accept anybody else. So I'm just like, I'm not really sure that's an after party I want to attend. So when it comes to my identity, once again, I'm trying to tie this back. The way I saw religion directly correlated to the way that I saw myself, because religion was everywhere. You have mom praying every night, mom telling us to pray all the time. You have people at school talking about the Bible, talking about God. You have people saying that, oh, so and so is this way and that's not godly, or da 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 da. You're not going to be able to make it if you keep acting like insert thing. So the more I started to listen to people and realize so many of this religion actually doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Why is it that we have to be accepted into the kingdom of heaven, yet at the same time, when it comes to God, he is not exactly receptive to accepting everyone? And it's like, oh, so there's only a certain amount of spots that you can have to get into heaven? So if there's only a certain amount of spot, which I believe the number was like 144,000, there's over 8 billion people on the planet. I'm like, if that's the case, then maybe I had to open myself to the perspective of like, maybe this God is not God. Maybe this is something else. Maybe this is something you really don't want to be very involved with. So I completely denounced religion. I'm like, okay, good. I don't want to do that. I, of course, still feared hell. Mind you, this is the past like 2-3 years of my journey. I still, of course, denied myself the ability to heal from that fear of hell, because I was like, even though I'm denouncing religion, this hell is probably real. I was so traumatized by the idea of being R-worded by grown men every day, which is what I was told would happen. You're gonna get R-worded every day by penises covered in hot coals or whatever. Like, I was like, why would he do that? Even if like your crime is just like, I don't really think that guy's real. So I was like, maybe this is something that's like not something I should be putting my young self through, or something I should be taking my my soul through. I wanted my purpose to be around the fact that I am not a bad person. And I wasn't a bad person. I was very kind. Well, I'm saying was, like I died, but or like I'm not kind anymore. I am definitely still kind. I now am not as people pleasing, and I'm able to set boundaries and able to feel like I can help people without having to sacrifice myself. And that is a long time coming, honestly. And it was only this past year that I've made that step over yet another hurdle in the game of life. So, as a lesbian, when it comes to unpacking my queer identity, last year in December, I got a second boyfriend. So we started dating December 4th. We broke up December 26th. So we were together for, well, we didn't start dating December 4th. We started talking again December 4th. I had known him in high school, and so, like, we started dating, and I'm like, okay, this is okay. And then I think about it, and I'm like, And then I watch a YouTube video of this YouTuber. She's going through her morning routine. It's very spiritual, very beautiful. She's a black woman. She's gorgeous. She has locks or whatever. So I'm like, oh my God, like, I'm looking at her, and then she gets into the headstand pose, and it's nothing sexual for me. I was just like looking at her, and I'm like, that is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Her muscles were flexing. She looked almost ethereal, and I had never been able to see women in that light because, I was hiding myself. And being in a relationship with a man at the time, I was like, oh no. So I'm watching this video, I'm like, oh my God. And I say out loud, sitting on the floor, watching this on my TV, I think I might be a lesbian. So then it's me unpacking that identity, and I'm like, whoa, I didn't expect for me to start feeling like this all of a sudden. I'm like, whoa, taken aback, because I had no idea that I would ever even consider feeling that way or consider adopting that label, because I'd never thought that maybe I just didn't like men, even though I was obsessed with the idea of my ex more than like more than I was in love with him, because I'd never been in love with him. I did love him, but I'd never been in love with him, and I don't think I ever will have been in love with him if we had stayed together. So when it comes to seeing that video, and I'm sitting there thinking like, whoa, I might be a lesbian. I did end up talking to one guy after that, and even though I really liked him, he reminded me of a stud, which was why I really liked him. So I'm looking at this guy through the lens of, I would love him so much more if he were a masculine woman. And then I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm just really not that into him. So after identifying as bisexual since I was 11 years old, 11, 12, I'm identifying as bisexual, and I went that whole time under the idea or the assumption that I was bisexual. So now me in that position looking at that video, I'm like, whoa, okay, so this and then I said it, and it kind of made my mind go like whoa. And then my thoughts were just so clear that night as well. I'm like, oh, this is how I feel about myself. This is how it feels to really have a sense of knowing over yourself. So I'm like, okay. And then I was on cloud 9 for days and days and days after that. And now it's August, so it's been quite a few months since last December when I broke up with my boyfriend, the day after watching a video of a woman doing yoga. And it wasn't something that was like I got sexual gratification out of that video. It was just, I saw her in her most pure form, and her most pure form was her doing this self-care ritual where she's just showing the utmost amount of love and care and tenderness toward herself. And I was enamored with the idea of that. I was absolutely enamored with the idea of that, because I'm like, she is doing this. She looks amazing. She feels amazing. Obviously, I've done yoga before at this point. So I'm like, I know she's probably in a body that feels comfortable to her. And then watching her other videos where she talks about her spiritual journey and realizing, oh, like, the way I feel about this woman is not the way that a man would feel about a woman, but it is the way that a lesbian would feel about a woman. And that's when it clicked for me, finally, after I don't know how long, that I am a lesbian. I'm a lesbian, and I'm still unpacking my identity, still going through the motions of figuring out exactly, not necessarily if I still like men, because no, but more so on the side of like, do I like myself more with this type of energy or this type of energy? Do I feel better when I'm coupled or single? Which some questions still are not able to be answered because I have yet to have a relationship, a long term exclusive relationship with another woman. So, this was my journey to figuring out my identity. Next video, when I do my whole after I come out, because I'm still not out. I've known for months and months and months, and the person that I want to come out to the most is my mom. Anyone else, I don't really care like what they think, but I know my mom, she's gonna love me regardless. But I feel like if I tell her, a weight would be kind of lifted off of my shoulders, a pressure that I had been feeling for years and years and years, the pressure to feel like I had to hide myself in order to protect the image of myself for her benefit, even though I know for a fact that she would not be extremely happy to know that I had been hiding away the way I felt, simply for the fact that I assumed that she would not like me for me or love me for me. No mother wants to hear their child say, like, I just assumed you wouldn't love me anymore, because if I heard my child say that, it would break my heart. It really would. So when it comes to identity, to wrap this whole thing up, I believe, I don't know if you heard that, she's arguing with my brother because he doesn't want to take his bath. But I am now at a point where I'm like, I needed to make sure I was sure of myself as well before I told her, because I'd gone through many phases in life where I told her and then I went back on my word, because, as humans, we are very contradictory. But there is not a single doubt in my mind about this one thing, because I'm actually taking the time to think through my life, think through my experiences, and think through how I feel about myself, how I feel about gender, how I feel about sexuality, how I feel about the world, how I feel about patriarchy, how I feel about living in a patriarchy as someone who falls outside of that, and going through the ebbs and flows of realizing how much of a political identity a lesbian identity is, as much as it is a sexual identity, or not a sexual identity, well, no, a sexual identity or preference, whatever, and how I had to kind of disillusion myself from the fact that it is not a choice to be this way, because I used to pray every night that I would change, that I would become better, I would be better, only to realize that the only better that I needed in my life was to fully accept myself for who I was, because not accepting myself for who I was has done absolutely 1,000% more harm than any good ever. Like, and it's just something that you have to learn to live with. You have to learn to move on after finding out this information about yourself, because otherwise you're gonna have to sit, like a lot of people do, still stuck in a religious bubble, sit and not accept yourself and hate everything about yourself, and hate yourself into heaven, basically. And that is not something that is on my itinerary. Thank you for listening. This was basically just a stream of consciousness for me. I appreciate anyone who comes across this video, and thank you. Share, like, comment. Give your experience if you are also a part of the community and would like to share how you feel about yourself and your identity alongside me, because this is a journey that quite a few people are taking, and that is the most okay thing ever. Bye bye. Love you. Bye bye. Love you. Have a good one. Have a nice time. Da 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 da. Peace.